January 1974. The full moon moved unusually close to the Earth. In Search Of has found that a strange wave of violent crimes seemed to affect many large cities. Moon madness has long been a persistent myth, which scientists are now investigating with computer technology. Can the full moon drive men mad? We have always feared the night and strange creatures that prowl by the light of the moon. Shakespeare said it best. It is the very error of the moon. She comes more near the earth than is her wont, and drives men mad. The Latin word for moon is luna, which is the root for our word lunatic, meaning moonstruck. And we've tried to contain our fear of the moon's powers in old legends. Many of these myths tell of the moon changing men into animals. One story in particular seems to haunt the collective unconscious of all humanity. The story is so persistent, it must resonate with our basic biological drives. Found all over Europe, Asia, and among many American Indian tribes, the tale is best told in an old German nursery rhyme. My child, take heed, be pure at heart, and say your prayers by night, or you may become a cursed wolf when the moon is full and bright. Of course, there never was a recorded case of a human changing into a wolf. But thousands of tormented souls have been locked away in asylums, howling at the moon. This transformation from man to monster has been a favorite theme of storytellers. Robert Louis Stevenson wrote Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. In the classic film, John Barrymore was praised for his spare use of makeup and strong acting. In the novel, of course, the transformation was effected by a secret potion. But Stevenson's story was based on a true report of moon madness. In the 19th century, Edinburgh was plagued by a wave of senseless, brutal burglaries. Clues led police to suspect a single man was behind the crimes. But who could it be? The last person to suspect was William Brodie, a deacon of the Cabinet Makers Guild, a church elder, and stalwart community leader. Police hesitated to even bother this respected, hard-working man. They reminded him to be on the lookout at the next full moon. The unknown Edinburgh criminal seemed to favor those nights. William Brodie was a classic case of multiple personality. In one body, two souls seemed to compete for dominance. The decent, hard-working artisan could normally maintain control, except at nights of the full moon. Brodie later said, "It was not me. I insist it was not. There was another person in the room with me." The crime wave continued. A reward for the unknown predator was doubled, and only the foolish walked alone at night. Finally, acting on an anonymous tip, police staked out Brodie's shop. At his trial, Deacon Brodie was to base his defense on lunacy, blaming the full moon. The jury was not sympathetic. He was promptly hanged. Miami psychiatrist Arnold Lieber is author of the book The Lunar Effect. His investigations into moon madness have stirred an ongoing scientific controversy.
As a medical student, when I was doing my rotation on the psychiatric wards at the University of Miami Medical School, I noticed a rather interesting situation. I walked into the nursing station and said, "Hey, look what's going on out there. The natives are really restless tonight. What's happening?" The nurses and attendants laughed and jokingly told me, "Well, it's time of full moon. They always go crazy when it's like this." It was at that point that I decided, hey, we ought to take a look at this. Maybe there's something to it and maybe there's not. If there isn't anything to it, why don't we design a study that will prove that it's malarkey? If there is something to it, then we may be able to make a valuable contribution to preventive psychiatry and criminology. So I set out to design such a study.
The Dade County Medical Examiner's Office was Dr. Lieber's prime source of data. There, tens of thousands of murders had been meticulously cataloged and cross-referenced.
What we did was to examine the murders in Dade County, Florida over a 15-year period in relation to the moon phase cycle. This study was the first time that adequate computer methodology using data samples over a long period of time and from different geographical areas were used in order to obtain our results. The strength of the peaks in our data were quite a surprise to us. What we found was a highly statistically significant increased frequency of murders, both at the full of the moon and the new of the moon in Dade County over a 15-year period.
Miami was the first of several cities Dr. Lieber investigated. In each, he found evidence that violence waxed and waned with the moon. These peaks of violence at the full moon and again at new moon correspond to the times of highest tide. Could it be that some human beings go insane at high tide?
Although everyone's affected by cosmic forces or geophysical forces to some extent, some people are in fact more susceptible to the triggering effects of these geophysical stresses than other people. I'm talking about emotionally unstable people, people in precarious balance with reality anyhow. These are people who are tiptoeing on the edge of reality. Borderline personalities, manic depressives, borderline schizophrenics, emotionally unstable individuals. These people seem to be uniquely susceptible to the triggering effects of geophysical or cosmic stresses. Anything may be enough to push them off. These people ought to know about this because there are certain ways that they can protect themselves from the effects. For example, if someone knows that they are uniquely triggered by the phases of the moon or by some sunspot activity, they may want to stay out of crowded places. They may want to avoid the bars. They may want to lock up their weapons at home. With this knowledge, police, fire rescue, and hospital emergency room people can prepare themselves for especially heavy loads during these times. They can lay on more people, they can expect heavier patient loads, and they can be prepared and therefore be in a position to protect life and limb.